Peter Parker has had it rough the past few months, moving away with his wife only to be brought back to New York. But with the return of his greatest foe, Norman Osborn, things have gotten even crazier. With the loss of his brother and daughter, Peter Parker and his wife Mary Jane must cope with their losses. Between their return to college, Norman Osborn, the Stacy family, new gangs, ninjas, and the Trapster, will they rise above it all or crack under the weight? Welcome to the Forgotten Era, where we'll answer all those questions and more. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Forgotten Era podcast, the podcast where we talk about the Forgotten Era. Imagine that. I'm your host, Ethan, and I'm joined with the other host,
Matthew, the only guy who, I don't know how to give it. I don't have an intro for myself. I thought I did, but it's not snappy.
It's okay. The other host.
I'm the other. Yes, I am the
Oh
other.
my God, yeah.
There we go. It ties all back in.
Where are your wrist spikes? I need them.
I'm able to tell air filtration or whatever with my hair.
Your long eyesight. Oh God. Anyway, we're not there yet. So, this is the second episode. I can't believe we made it. It feels like forever, but it's only been 3 weeks, which is crazy. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who listened to the first episode. It's gotten way more engagement than I expected it to. We're at about 100 views on YouTube alone, and then around like 60 on Spotify, and I haven't checked the Apple analytics, but we do have one review on Apple, and it's a 5-star rating, so whoever did that, thanks so much. Leave a comment or something, because I know you can do that on some platforms.
Awesome.
That made me really happy.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, so I'm digging everyone's energy, and I'm just really happy that people are enjoying it, because I mean, I had fun making the last one, and hopefully it continues to be fun. I don't know why it wouldn't be, because I like talking to Matthew, and I like talking about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I like being here. I like talking about my favorite character.
I like being here. I don't believe you.
You don't believe me? There's a million other things. Man, I could be complaining about like any Philadelphia team right now. I could be with my girlfriend. I could be at work. I could be staring lovingly into my best friend's eyes. There's a bunch of things I could be doing.
Well, anyway, but thanks for hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. Oh man, I'm exposing when it was recorded. Anyway, so we're covering 2 books today. This is going to be the first half of November of 1996. It's going to be Sensational Spider-Man number 12 and Amazing Spider-Man 419. I know last episode we covered the first issue of Spectacular. It's kind of like off balance because that book came out at the end of the month while Revelations was going. So it's like that's the start of this, and now everything after is the rest. So when I was trying to like plan these out, I was like, I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's going to work out. I have it all set. I guess we could talk a little bit about where Sensational was before this, like with Ben and everything. So right before this obviously was Revelations, but before that we had that whole Looter story. Well, actually it was Swarm, and then before that was Looter. Do you have any opinions on that? We want to talk about that at all? Because some of that kind of ties into this, because especially the story with the Looter, because he stole Trapsters' gun and stuff. But it's not really super important. Just a fun story.
I mean, those books are kind of, other than the Trapster incident, which, I mean, there's also the stuff that happens in the Silver Sable book that kind of ties into Sensational, the book we're covering tonight. Those books they're fun. There's really nothing that like ill I have to say, nothing great that I have to say about them. The Swarm book is a classic. It's a certified hood classic. I'm sorry. I love Swarm. That's one of my, I guess bad villain. I don't
Guilty
know.
pleasure villain.
Yeah, guilty pleasure. Everybody's got their, the most people will be like Hypno Hustler or Stegron or
Judas Traveler.
Well, Judas Traveler, that's you, buddy. You're all on your own on that one. But they're fun issues. The Sensational, especially when Ringo came on. Especially when Ringo came on. Uh, I still think was kind of trying to find its foot in the sand of like the its footing in the Spider-Man book catalog, and I think right around there is when it starts to kind of find its voice. So.
Definitely. I mean, it started as such like a staple book of Ben's era. I mean, that I would say Sensational was kind of Ben's main book. I mean, Amazing is always, the primary Spider title, but characters were being created in Sensational,
Mhm.
plot was being established in Sensational. So having Dan Jurgens and Klaus Janson was like a big deal. And when they left unexpectedly, understandably, but unexpectedly, I'm sure to Marvel, they were kind of like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? So took
Yeah.
the guy who was writing Spectacular Spider-Man and scripting a bunch of other stuff at that time and before, and just was like, please make the book work. And I love Todd DeZago, so like I can't complain. But I do feel like I'm sure it was a bit of a transition having to write two books at the same time for a while that
Mhm.
kind of felt the same, but with different art teams. Because I mean, that that time period after Blood Brothers into the end is kind of that transitional period where stuff is just kind of happening in the books.
Mhm.
They're able to establish their own characters, make new characters, write whatever the hell they want. So I mean, DeZago got to do the Looter and Swarm along with fucking Dragon Man, Will o' the Wisp, and that Lizard story. So it's just like he was just having fun the whole time, working with Luke Ross mainly, and Sal Buscema until he left,
which
and then Luke Ross.
which I think is like a big testament to Todd Zago. I'll always I know it's his pronunciation is all over the place, but that's how I've always pronounced it. So I apologize if he's listening. But go listen to his podcast, by the way. It's
Random
phenomenal.
Acts of Comics, plug it.
Yep. Um, his books, even though he was writing at the same time, his books are fun. They got a classic feel. Even with the issue we're covering tonight, it has a classic like you could have popped this book in the 60s or 70s and it would have fit right in, I
That,
feel like.
I feel like that's kind of what I love so much about the stuff where he's not mandated is his
Hmm.
stories really are like standalone. Like you can read that issue and have fun reading it,
Yep.
and it's written really well. He has a really great voice for Peter Parker. Like that's just I just feel like he has such a great voice in
It's
general for writing characters.
it's a
But
very underrated voice, and I feel like he gets a lot of it sounds similar to Tom DeFalco, which makes
yeah,
sense because DeFalco kind of took him under his wing and
yeah, he
everything.
scripted for DeFalco
Yeah.
pretty much the
So
entirety of the Clone Saga. So
so you definitely feel that, and I mean, of my opinion, I feel like there's no better person to be learning this stuff from, especially in the Spider books, from at that especially at that time, other than
yeah,
Tom DeFalco. Um, but I think his stuff to this day stands up to the test of time. You could give this issue to anybody at any point. I haven't read this issue in years,
mhm.
and I kind of just jumped right into it, and it's just fun. And I'm not a Trapster fan. I never have been, but that. I still think it's fun. But
And
yeah,
the
I don't want to go
Trapster is
too much.
so like this is kind of offbeat and kind of a not spoiler but foreshadowing. The Trapster is in so much of this fucking era. Like he is way too important.
Hmm.
Like
He's basically the catalyst for the most. Well, he is the catalyst
yeah,
basically for the most. I don't want to say iconic, but most
remembered.
remembered
Yeah.
story. So he really is a staple character
Yeah, he
for
shows
this
up a
run.
bunch. Mackie loves him too. Everyone loves him apparently. And that's kind of the thing that we talked about a little bit last week where it's kind of like back to basics for Peter Parker sort of kind of in terms of like the kinds of stories that were being told. But I do like that they
Yeah.
they branched out more and used like villains that hadn't been used for a while. Like Dizego using. Meteor Man slash Looter for stuff and using the Trapster and creating new characters and which we'll get to when we cover 419. So I don't know, just a fun book, and especially like talking about his voice. This issue obviously has like a pretty similar Peter Parker voice, but like later on when we actually get into more of like the emotional beats, DeZago just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
it's I feel so much emotion in a lot of his writing. It's great. But I mean, what would you expect from someone who scripted way more of the Clone Saga than you might remember? Because I mean, he was scripting for DeMatteis, he was scripting for DeFalco, he was scripting for everybody,
Hmm.
writing everything almost. It's just
He's
crazy.
he's kind of one of the I don't know the only other way to put it, and he's an unsung hero if
Yeah,
you're a fan of the Clone Saga, an unsung hero for the Clone Saga. He definitely deserves to be in that group. I know he's talked about for a year or two now about doing a roundtable with everybody, which I would kill to listen.
I want to be there.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I know we have Life of Riley. I would kill to have a Clone Saga documentary, like an unbiased, like middle ground documentary on the Clone Saga. I feel
Yeah,
like
here's what
it's
happened instead of I love Ben Riley, so I want to know what happened.
or I hate
Or I
Ben
hate, yeah.
Riley.
Let's talk about how
Yeah,
much of a disaster it was. No, yeah, that'd be so
yeah.
cool just to have like the people that developed it talking about how it was for better, for worse. So
Hmm. I feel like the closest thing is that comic tropes video.
yeah, kind of, sort of.
That's the closest we got, which he does not, but he doesn't do a bad job.
Yeah,
So, but I don't know if you want to jump into the issue.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I'll definitely jump into the issue now. So here we got Sensational Spider-Man number 12. So release date is actually November 6th, 1996. That's today's date as of recording. Just 28 years ago, or whatever. Cover date is January of '97. Written by Todd DeZago with fill-in pencils by Josh Hood. So this isn't a Ringo issue. The inker is John Lowe. Yeah. And then the colors are by Gregory Wright with wonderful digital enhancements, I guess. So this issue starts off in like an alleyway behind some dumpsters, maybe, sort of. The Trapster's back in town, and he wants his name known. He tortures some low-life gangbangers who were related to the Silver Sable story, and he traps them in his paste because what else is he gonna do? He's the Trapster. The police rush to the scene with Ben Urich and Peter Parker, who is ginger for some reason in this issue. I guess that was just a coloring mistake. But Peter snaps his pics. The police think it's Spider-Man because, as we're gonna learn a lot in this era, people think that the Trapster's webs are or Trapster's paste is Spider-Man's webs because no one can tell the difference, I guess, except for Peter, who immediately knows it's not him because, as the blurb says at the bottom, the thought box, he knows Spider-Man isn't responsible for this because, well, he is Spider-Man, which is just it's that like you can sense the tone of voice that's supposed to be read in because of how well it's written. I love stuff like that.
hmm.
So we get to the Bugle, and Peter's talking to Jonah, and Jonah's of course going on his little tirade. Peter or Spider-Man did this. I don't care if you think not. Spider-Man's a menace. He could have changed his web fluid. This goop is his. I don't care. Run it. So he runs it, and we have this terrifying, terrifying JJ image on page 6, which is wow. That is certainly something. So
Yeah, we'll talk about this later.
yeah, absolutely. So the next day, or I guess that night, whatever, whenever the paper's published and it's out, so I guess the next day, Trapster's reading the paper, and he's all pissed off because this is supposed to be his grand return to crime. There's a little hole in the crime scene, and why not make a name for himself right now? And so he hates that Spider-Man's being pinned for his crime because he wants it to be all about him because egocentric villain. So he compares trapping Spider-Man to a game of chess and how he's gonna get this beautiful crafted master plan that involves Goop somehow because he's the Trapster. and he really wants to trap Spider-Man, kill his ass, and make a name for himself. He's gonna do it. It's gonna be the greatest moment of his life because the Trapster, he never loses, baby. He never loses. We have,
Certified badass.
yeah, he's the best Spider-Man villain. Don't quote me on that, please God. I remember when they, this is a tangent, but I remember when they were like, oh, we might do Paste Pot Pete and Insomniac Spider-Man, and then they never did. But anyway, we have this really cool page, number 10, where I actually do like the art on this page. It's kind of a cool Spider-Man shot, but that's really all I have to say about it. He's webbing around. The Trapster is leaving a trail of gooped up people for Spider-Man to follow in hopes that he falls for his master plan, his master trap. We get him, just him being the Trapster, just abusing more gang members, and he mentions Gavin Thorpe, who is such a deep cut. It's crazy. Because he appears 3 times and then never again. And they were trying to hype him up as some like badass motherfucker who just never shows up at anything. Which, thank you, I guess. He appears on that iconic last page of Spider-Man 53
Yep.
as a floating head. And I'm
Hmm.
just, it went nowhere. I want to know where that
Like
was
a
supposed to go.
like a lot of things, it just fizzled out. I mean, there's so many things in this, especially in this era, that just they laid down the foundations and then they just never talk about it ever again. So just throw this in the pile.
It's just crazy to me that it is such a big deal that he was a main player in that page, which is such a beautiful page, by the way. And then we just like see him in 73 and 74, and
Hmm.
then never again, and he's mentioned here. So thanks for that deep cut, Mr. DeZago. That's great. Spider-Man finally catches up to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you now." And the Trapster runs away and leads him to this construction site where there's a bunch of like metal girders and bars and stuff. And Peter thinks he's being all clever, dodging all the Trapster's traps. In actuality, he's falling right into the main trap, which is just he slips and falls in a big pile of glue, and that's the master trap. He slicks up the metal so that he slips, and then he falls in a big thing of glue. And then he wants to drop like not an actual anvil, but like a metaphorical cartoon anvil on him, which is just so Todd DeZago. Just yeah, crush him with a big ass thing. Who cares? And so he's about to drop him, and Peter has this master plan of using the momentum by webbing the big generator thing. And so when it falls, it shoots him back up, and he's free. And the Trapster gets away because he's like, this is gonna kill him. I don't have to watch it because it always works. I'm the Trapster.
Yep.
That's why I beat Peter Parker slash Spider Man every single time. So the generator falls, and it does this giant fucking explosion, which is crazy. Peter's fine. He's just under some rubble and kicks it out of the way. We see the haunting faces of Aunt Anna and Mary Jane as Peter arrives home and can't go inside because, oh no, they're inside and I just can't get in because it's a common problem all the time.
Because there's no other windows in the house
Yeah,
that connects to another bedroom.
even though he literally he leaves out of the window all the time. Whatever.
Hmm.
Who cares? So we're back at the Bugle the next day, and Peter's fighting with Jonah again, being like, I proved you wrong, and it was obviously a Trapster, and he's like, fuck Spider-Man, I don't like that guy. He sucks. And if you want a real job, go to the Savage Land and look at some fucking polar ice caps melting, and that's your job. And that's our setup for the next story.
With the not so subtle, hey Peter, have you heard about this global warming thing?
Yeah,
It's all the
absolutely.
news.
Yeah. Did you know that the glaciers and the ice caps are melting? You better go investigate. This is a big problem for the world right now. And it still is. Imagine
Yep.
that. Still very relevant to this day.
Yeah.
And I do like the way that I love when they do this as like the like, hey, here's what's happening next issue. And it's just the pages on the paper. I absolutely love that because Jonah's holding up a paper, like a newspaper. It says, "Be here in 30 as Spidey teams up with Kazar and Shanna, as well as some other unexpected guest stars, to save the Savage Land," or a Savage Land. I don't know why it's A when it's a D, but whatever.
It's definitely a good transition. Um, it's a classic, something that you can only do in like comic books and
Yeah,
cartoons and stuff. But
I hate to go
where do
through
you
this.
want to begin?
I hate to go through this issue so quickly, but not a lot happens in it. So I guess that's just the way that it goes. And I kind of got rambly there in the middle, but you do what you can do. I had a couple takeaways from this that I wrote down. The first one is that the coloring is really weird on like the people. The big thing I pointed out was
Yeah,
Ginger Peter. I just don't understand like where they got that from. Because he sometimes has light brown hair, but this is like really orange, especially
yeah,
at the beginning.
especially I'm looking at the first 3 pages that he shows
Yeah,
up in, and he looks like more like a Wally West with a mullet than he does Peter Parker.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're in the Spider-Man by Todd DeZago and Michael Ringo paperback, you can go back 4 pages and see Peter drawn by Ringo and I think colored by the same colorist, to be honest. And it just looks completely different.
I mean, there's a lot more than the coloring that,
Well,
that
yeah, I'm just pointing out that one thing to start, but yeah, it's Gregory Wright on the other issue as well, on issue 11. So I don't know what happened. Maybe it was just kind of a lack of communication, maybe just a mess up, or it could have been the enhancements. Digital coloring was so experimental back then, and most of the time looked like fucking shit. Question mark.
hmm
So that's just my opinion.
you were very hit and miss on when they would do the digital enhancements back then, or remember when they would do like you'd go and they'd have characters go on the internet and it'd be all pixelated
Yeah,
and all that stuff. It definitely looks a lot. Well, this is a stretch. Comparatively, it looks a little bit better than maybe like 2 years prior, roughly. I think when they started doing it, I could be wrong when they started doing it. Maybe
yeah,
two or
that
three
that
years
sounds right.
prior. Um,
There were
but it
definitely some
definitely.
early Clone Saga issues that have digital coloring. So,
Oh, well, Cyber War, or
well, yeah,
not
I mean,
Cyber
even
War.
before that, like, I'm pretty sure that they had some digital coloring on like Smoke and Mirrors.
Yeah, they did, but I don't mean to interrupt, but like,
No,
where else do
you
you want
can
to
go
go?
ahead. Just say what you need to say. I know you've been itching to get your opinion out.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last night. What the hell happened with Josh Hood's art? Holy hell!
Yeah, I've never
It, it,
seen anything else he's done, so I don't know if there's like a bar or if this is just like
uh, he's
terrible.
I believe he's if I remember correctly, he did stuff on like Venom, and I think he's done some Star Trek stuff. I could be wrong. I think he even did something on the Green Goblin book, the Ulrich book.
Huh.
He did some DC stuff. If I'm thinking of the right Josh Hood, um, this this looks bad. The one. I mean, we talked about JJ, especially the one image
Yeah,
at the
he's
beginning and
just
at the
screaming.
that screaming image is bad, but I think the worst one is when he's pointing down
Mm.
at the end of the book, and he looks like a happy grandfather, but yet he's yelling at Peter about the cancer in the system. And Peter looks like a bad JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character. He's got the hair, the mullet, he's got the wide top of the body, and then it tapers down into a little chest. It looks like he's about to call out, Spider-Man as his stand. It's bad.
Yeah, I
Like
don't know
it
what the fuck.
is.
On that same page, just like them walking in the doorway, it just looks so like Peter specifically looks so fucking terrible.
Which is weird because his Spider-Man isn't terrible, nor is his Trapster.
Yeah, his masked characters are actually pretty good. I kind of
They're,
I dig the way that it looks. It's very like it reminds me a lot of the early Luke Ross that we talked about last episode.
yeah, there is one panel he did that I actually really like, and it's when Peter first runs into when Peter meets Peter, and um, they're both pointing their hands in their faces,
Yeah,
getting ready to shoot their respective threads. I think that's a cool panel,
that's a
but
really cool panel. I was almost gonna use the one of him like clinging to the like metal girder thing on, I think it's the page after the one we're talking about, the 2 pages after, where Spider Sense is going off. I almost used that one for this episode's art, but decided to not use it. But I agree that his Spider-Man looks pretty cool. It's just the people, dude, just fucking, they just are rough. I don't know if it was a pencils thing or an inks thing or what, but it does not look very good.
unfortunately, I think it's just the time, the
Yeah,
'90s. People kind of drew like this, and I mean,
especially for
his
like just a fill-in issue. Like I don't know if that like makes the work any less important, but if you're just trying to fill something in, get it done, and move on, who
I mean,
knows?
that's possible, but I mean, his Aunt Anna, she looks like a school teacher I had.
Hey, it is not as bad as what we're about to discuss next. At least it's.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. I know exactly what panel you're talking about too. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
I mean, is there anything else you want to say? I mean, this is a pretty bare bones issue, but as we said in the beginning, that's not a problem. Todd DeZago's writing it's fun. This is a fun
Yeah.
issue,
Well,
despite the artwork.
I mean, especially when the issue prior we have Peter and Ben gonna like get fucked up. Like we're going from this super emotional story in Revelations, and we have our little in between with DeMatteis and Luke Ross in, Spectacular 241. But this is a book after that. So like this is still immediately after Revelations, and I don't expect it to be some grand spectacle story. Like the fact that it is just, here's Peter fighting a fucking like C-list villain, and that's all it's gonna be for 20 pages. And just let's have
Hmm.
some fun. Let's talk about where Peter's at. He's a little bit still off of his game because, unexpectedly has to jump back into the Spider-Man mantle after facing his greatest foe ever. Like
Hmm.
it's a lot, but it is good, and it's written well, and that's all I could really ask for to a certain point. Like comics are obviously both a visual medium and a literary one. And sometimes when the art is bad, you don't want to read the book, but I don't think it's so egregious that it makes the book hard to read. You just, with some books like Luke Ross, for example, last issue, you want to sit on a page and be like, "Damn, that's fucking pretty." But for this, it's just kind of like, oh, there's stuff going on. Let's go to the next one. Read the words. Cool. Oh yeah, that's all right. That one's pretty bad. Okay. Next page. That's just kind of how like my mind goes about it.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, like you said, it's a collaborative system with comics, but I do feel I put more weight on the story, in my honest opinion. There's plenty of books where I don't jive with the art, but I love the story. So you can give me a book with bad art, and I'll still like it. And this issue, by no means, is a bad book. If I had to grade it, I know we never talked about doing grades, but if I had to grade it would be like a solid B minus.
Yeah, I did
Um,
a I did a number rating on my notes. I said like a 6 out of 10. So I'd say that's kind of in like a B minus C is kind of where I'm
yeah,
at.
that it's definitely saved by his writing.
Yeah,
I feel like if anybody else was on this, it might have suffered. But I mean, as long my opinion is, as long as you get Peter, especially during this era, Peter and Mary Jane. I know she's not in this book, really, but Peter and Mary Jane's voice down. You've already got half the work done.
yeah.
and he succeeds at this.
I will say
So,
one thing though, the cover by Yancey Labatt is fucking awesome. I love that cover a lot.
that is a really nice cover, which it is deceptively good.
Yeah, yeah, because you expect that to be the interior art too, and it is very much not.
It kind of pays a little bit lip service to that panel that I said I liked.
Yeah,
There's also something that I do want to bring up that we didn't talk about, but where the Trapster was at this point. He, at the beginning of the book, he talks about, you know, well, I knew Marco was watching me the whole time.
and loan sharks and stuff.
Yeah, but before this whole thing had happened, he had lost his costume and outfit, and or so he claims, and he basically tries to join up with Sandman, who at the time was running around with Silver Sable. He tries to join up with him and tries to become tries to play off like, oh, I'm good, I've turned good now. And Sandman tries to, hey, somebody gave me a second chance, I'm going to give you a second chance, because they had worked together previously. Um, so let's let's try it out. And he ends up betraying Flint Marco, and was stealing and was going back to his criminal ways. Had created a costume, and Flint freaks the fuck out on him, and beats the hell out of him. And that's kind of where he's at the beginning of this issue, where that's why he's kind of just like you know that's why he's talking about Sandman essentially at the beginning of this issue. So
It's good to know because I didn't read it.
I I have the books. I went back because I liked those Silver Sable books.
Shout out
You
Stephen
you
Butler who started it.
yeah, you can't find those books on Marvel Unlimited. I think the first issue and I think the last issue. Um, I actually had to pull them out. I had to go to my storage unit and literally pull them out of my long boxes. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's it it's a good it's a good lead in. It's not a terrible issue if
Yeah,
you wanted to know more context. So
and this issue, Sensational 12, serves as a good like gateway into what's coming next because just a story and then hey, here's what we're actually gonna do. Mike Ringo's
mhm
back, so is Rich Case. Cool, let's have fun.
mhm
So that's about it for that one. Time for a book that's way more important.
yeah, amazing. Which I mean, as far as amazing goes, I mean we'll be looking at Amazing 419. Um, as far as what was going on before this book, same thing we were talking about with Sensational. You had Revelations, you had the Clone Saga. So I'm not really going to go over that whole thing. Um, if you're listening to this podcast, hey, Ben Riley died. Peter's now Spider-Man. The baby's dead. Everything's in a good place, so to say. Um,
It's
hey
dead
man,
now.
Spider Girl is a classic book.
I'm just saying what you're saying. You're saying it's in a better place. So.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like
I know.
talking about some of those other fans, but
Absolutely.
but I'll kind of go over the book. So going into quick summary, Amazing Spider-Man 419 release date as far as Unlimited says. So I know you have the actual release dates. January 1st, 1997. Now is that correct?
That would be cover date.
That would be cover date. Okay.
Yeah, that's what Marvel does on their website is they only have cover dates for some reason, which drives me insane.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hate cover dates. They confuse the hell out of me. Like I understand
I
why they exist, but I wish they would just be like, "Hey, here's the release date and the cover date."
That's your pet peeve. I could give two shits.
Yeah, it
I
looks like
couldn't give two shits.
November 13th.
November 13th.
So
Okay, so we're
yeah,
we're like a week away from that.
right.
Steve Scrose is on pencils. Inks is Bud LaRosa. Colorist is Bob Sharon. Lettering is Richard Starkings. Um, I'll go over a little bit, on Tom and Steve in a little bit after I get done the summary. But our story begins with a mysterious man somehow lurking in the shadows of a
Imagine
fully lit.
that.
Yeah, we're hitting back the Clone Saga stuff
God
already.
damn.
Somehow he's in the shadows of a fully lit computer lab going over the events of adjectiveless Spider-Man 73 and 74 with his lackey named Chesbro. The two conspire to rule the underworld with the new power gap held at the seams by Fortunato. The man in the shadows then declares it's time for the Black Tarantula to extend his realm of power. We then pan to the one true, totally not a clone, Peter Parker, as he trails well-known Bugle reporter Ben Urich, as he receives a tip from one of the Rose's men that a new player, Black Tarantula, is on the scene smuggling $1 million worth of emeralds, telling him he is a huge international player in the underworld. As the meeting concludes, Peter beats up a group of thugs who look to make a quick buck off of Ben. After switching into his cities, after saving Ben and Peter meet up briefly, interacting about what they have learned about the Black Tarantula. We then pan to Delilah and the Rose working out and discussing the Rose's health after fibbing on his reps and discuss how ruthless the new Black Tarantula really is. We then pan to Mary Jane and Aunt Anna painting Baby May's room, and after finding out Anna is going back to school, both Peter and Mary Jane decide they're going to go back to college, Peter specifically for his master's degree. Ben and Peter both go on the hunt for more info on the Black Tarantula. Ben finding out Black Tarantula just lost his family and is not someone to be messed with from his Interpol contact. Ben, on the other hand, Peter, on the other hand, finds out where the Emerald deal is taking place and contacts Ben to meet up at the Stockbridge shipping pier. While Ben hesitates, he ultimately goes. Before leaving, Ben comments about how it was a coincidence. Peter calls him after Ben was looking at a photo of the doctor who delivered baby Meg. With all the parties meeting up at the pier, the Black Tarantula men ambush Delilah and the Rose's men, forcing Peter to dive in. After a bald man with a spider on his head named El Uno absolutely demolishes Delilah, at the same time a bomb is activated, Peter faces the brute and outsmarts him by poking his eyes and webbing his face up to stall before the bomb goes off. Peter can't defuse the bomb in time and quickly evacuates with Urich, the two commenting on if the man they just saw was really the Black Tarantula. We then pan to the real Black Tarantula being told of El Uno's failure and thus breaking the glass. In the next issue, we meet the X-Man. So,
I like the
what'd you
next
think of this
issue.
issue?
I like the next issue. Nah, I do like the next issue. But this issue isn't bad. I mean, it's kind of funny to me, especially after going over that Wizard article last episode, how we were talking about how Adjectiveless Spider-Man was kind of being touted as the crime book. This book is kind of the crime book.
Yeah.
It focuses way more on the underworld and what's going on because I don't think I mentioned that last episode. I kind of just focused on the fact that 76 and like 78, 79, 80 are kind of like crime issues in Adjectiveless. But this book specifically is just all about that. We've got Fortunato, who appears a lot in this specific series. We got
Previously and after, yeah.
yeah, and we've got the introduction of the Black Tarantula. We have the focus on our new Rose. So it's just like it's a lot of crime stuff, and it's all about that power dynamic. It's all about the Black Tarantula now versus the Rose, with Fortunato in the middle, because the Rose is like part of Fortunato's circle that he established in Spider-Man 73, 74. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Say interesting. It's cool. I like it. It's awesome. I dig it a lot, and I thought this issue was great. I do like that it is the one that kind of starts a story, like compared to the to Sensational 12. Like this is the start of a new story, whereas Mike Ringo had, from what I've listened to Todd DeZago talk about, he had a lot of like trouble sometimes keeping up with the monthly schedule. So like
Mm-hmm.
you need a fill-in issue. As for Scrooge, I mean he doesn't stay long, but he was able to pump out issue after issue for the time that he did work on the book. So at least within the first couple months that he worked on it. So I dig this issue a lot. I think it does a lot of great character work. I like that we get the stuff with Peter and MJ going back to college, which is super important to this era, especially this book specifically. A lot of stuff happens later that is integral to them being in school. We get some good Ben Urich moments. I always love a good Ben Urich moment, especially because I mean we didn't get a lot of them during the Clone Saga until kind of like mid to end when Peter came back to New York. So it's just cool to see him still around. I love the stuff with Peter and Mary Jane having to kind of like cope, and I like that Peter's so he has MJ in mind, and he's like, yeah, I think going back to school would be great for her. Like with everything that's going on, going back to school for what she loves might be exactly what she needs, which is just that's a good Peter MJ moment, I gotta say.
It's those moments that make them a good couple.
Yeah, because he could
It's
just be
not
like,
just
school, what the hell? Like, why would we do that?
yeah, it's not just Peter focused. Like Peter, I'm Spider Man. I'm the most important thing in this book. She has her own thing going on, which works the best for her.
Yeah, and it's her idea. I mean, well, Anna kind of puts the idea in her head, but she's like, yeah, it's going back to school might be cool, and then Peter's interested in going, because it's like she mentions it, and then he's like, well, see what their science program's got up. So, um, I like it a lot, and that leads to a bunch of other stuff that's gonna be an adjective list and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
a good start. What do you think of it?
Uh, so overall, as a general package, I think there's a lot more meat on the bones of this issue compared to the last issue. Um, as far as I mentioned beforehand that I would talk a little bit about DeFalco and Steve and the kind of look where they're at. DeFalco, really, if you know this era, you probably know where DeFalco is. He had written in the '80s, black costume, Hobgoblin, taking over the Hobgoblin stuff. This is around the time, a little bit before Spider Girl becomes a thing. Um, he's a staple at this point in Spider-Man lore. One of the most important, in my opinion, one of the most important people in the history of the character. And it's good to see him back on the book. Uh, he well, on a second larger run, um, writing Peter, because I feel like, especially after the Clone Saga, you really needed to, especially for Amazing, you really needed to establish Peter's voice again. And I feel like this book does a good job at that. There are a couple moments where he's in costume that I actually love. I talk about it often, and one of them is when he's beating up the crooks, and there's that funny four panels up on one of the pages where he's getting behind the goons, and he's like,
Yeah.
they're talking about going after Ulrich or Uric, and he's like, no, I think we should let him go. And he's like, what? Doesn't my vote count? And then he beats the hell out of him. And then what he does is how he traps one of these guys is both hilarious and very cool. I like it when Spider-Man. So it's very simple for a writer and an artist to be like, it's Spider-Man. He's going to web people up. You know what I mean? But what he does in this issue is he uses tires.
Yeah.
sticks them to his feet, and then walks with the tires, and then ties the dude up with the tires and everything. And it's just a cool, like, little bit of, action that Steve kind of draws.
It's
So
something
going
so
over,
specific that you don't have to do that, but the fact that you did is so great.
yeah, it's, I'm not the biggest fan of his artwork. Um, I know he's done work on, like, um, he did work on, like, X-Men and Wolverine and
And he had his
Cable.
big Gambit run, and yeah,
He he did Berserker, the couple of the Berserker books with Keanu Reeves.
yeah,
I mean, he's probably best known for being a storyboard artist on The Matrix.
yeah.
And he's an Eisner winner with, what was the book? We Stand on Guard. Um, so he deserves his flowers. His art's just not for me. Still kind of isn't. He definitely has improved over the years, but there's nothing inherently bad about his art. It's just that, we're coming off an era of Bagley, and going into this, he was kind of, I don't want to say doomed. He was kind of set up to, be compared. Um, and of course, there's that Aunt Anna
Oh my
image
God,
that we
dude,
were
that
alluding to.
the MJ too, like that whole page is just, oh my God. Delilah looks the exact same as Mary Jane. Mary Jane looks scary. There's a zoom in on her butt where Aunt Anna looks like a doll, like a
She does. She looks like a
scary
child.
doll. And then we get a little up close where she's just got like large, beady, scary stuffed animal eyes,
Mm-hmm.
tiny, scary lips. I don't know. Everyone, the thing that I think about Steve is I'm also not a huge fan of his, admittedly, but he's one of those people that does costume characters a lot better than human faces. Which, I mean, if you're in superhero comics, that is extremely important, but you have to be able to do both for a good balance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, every time he draws Spider Man, I think it's really cool.
Especially that
And
splash page where it's the after
yeah,
image where he's swinging.
yeah, that one's sweet. So I really dig his Spider Man. It's just his humans just they don't do it for me a lot of the times because sometimes they look good and other times they're just like, oh my God, what is this abomination? It was the same when I was reading Gambit, which was after this, so he's a little more like fine tuned. And the human faces in that do look better, but they're still kind of that same like hit or miss. Like, but he does costume characters really well. Like he draws Executioner in that series, and it looks awesome. But the moment that he draws like Rogue's face, I'm like, oh man, what's going on here?
It's funny because his Peter, I don't mind his Peter, and I
Yeah, I
don't
don't mind him
mind
either.
his Ben. And that the one I actually like the panel where he's like Peter and MJ are hugging. I like
Yeah,
that panel. But I don't want to harp. I mean, this is the second artist in a row where we're like, not for me. So I don't want to harp on it. But as far as story goes, this was a really good issue. A lot of good moments. I mean, I know for '90s people, Delilah is either you love her or you don't remember her.
yeah, she's one
And
of my favorite deep cuts, to be honest. I just think she's hilarious.
oh well, let's. Do you want to talk about the the her getting grabbed by El Uno, smashed into the ground,
Dude, she gets
and
abused in this run. Like later
dude,
on too, like where she's I won't get into it. But like they fuck her up. Tom DeFalco was like, "Yeah, I made this character. I'm just gonna she's just always gonna have her ass beat. She's such a joke." And I love
she
that the way that so people that haven't read these, when Delilah was introduced and in this series, obviously, whenever she says certain words, they're emphasized and they're in like a completely different font. and they're all stylized, and I'm sure the letterer had a really great time doing it. But when she gets fucking face slammed by El Uno, he also has a different font, and I
I
know
am
that was
unimpressed.
deliberate. That was just so fucking good because it's like, yeah, you talk weird. I'm unimpressed, and fucking slams her face into the fucking ground.
And
I
then
don't know.
Peter is like, Peter, Peter literally, he's beating the shit out of a dude, and he just goes, "Whoa! I've
Mister
been taking out the small fry on both sides. Mr. Clean has been
Mister
exhibiting a
Clean.
real hostile streak towards women." Peter just watched this woman get obliterated, and he's just like, "Oh, look at me! I'm gonna make a fucking joke." Like,
Oh man, maybe I should hop in.
which Peter. So Peter, like, they do the whole trope where, like, there's always that whole thing where, like, Peter doesn't know the strength of these people, so he holds back. So they do that
Yeah,
whole, like, punch, and, like, they'll be like, "Oh, I took that punch," but instead of him, like, hitting them double hard or, like, finding some way, he beats the guy by doing a Three Stooges and poking him in the
yeah,
eye, just casually with his hands on his hips, webs the guy's head up, and then goes, "I'll just let you take the bomb, dude," and then just
yeah,
leaves, which is hilarious because I had read Peter Parker, or not Peter Parker, I had read Spider-Man 73 and 74 in preparation for this. And in that storyline, while they're doing the whole Fortunato thing, Tombstone is like getting
yeah.
gunned down
Ben's just
by
like,
a
let's leave him.
mob. Yeah, and they're all like, "Let's leave him," and Ben's just like, "No, nobody dies today."
Yeah.
So it's hilarious that it literally, like, a couple issues later in Amazing, is Peter's just like, "Let the fucker die. If he lives, he
If
lives."
he's gonna
Like,
fucking blow up.
so, but I mean, the big thing we got to talk about is Black Tarantula. Like, he is a big thing if you're a fan of this era. He's a thing if you're a fan of, like, Spider Girl, because Tom DeFalco uses a version of the Black Tarantula in that book. Um, I don't know how I know we haven't formally been, introduced to him. We're kind of having the hints of him, but I always liked this character.
Yeah, I
He's
liked him
got a cool
too.
design.
Like, granted, I haven't read all of Spider Girl, which I know is like, whoa, but you like the Clone Saga? Oh my god! To be honest, I didn't know how closely tied it was to the Clone Saga until like probably 5 years ago. So
I mean, I will
I was
fix
really
that.
late into it, and I read like the Spider Girl like digests when I was younger, but I was so young I didn't remember it. So I was just like, oh, cool, fun art. Um, but no, I like that Black Tarantula a lot. I like that we're getting the like his wife and child thing, which is extremely important to his character later on. Not until like the last couple issues we see him in, but it's still like super important to his motivation and everything. And I like that he's kind of like shadowy figure until this big reveal. And I like that we're seeing all of his lackeys first. Like we're seeing Chesbro, we're seeing El Uno, who gets also brutally fucked up later on. I love spoilers. Um, I don't know. He's just a cool guy. I like the crime stuff in this book a lot. That's the one thing that always stood out to me is for the longest time, I think I talked about it last episode where I had a lot of not hostility, but I kind of took this era as it's just like Gathering of Five and went based off of that where I was like, "Oh god, what's going on?" Like Gathering of Five and the
Final
reboot.
chapter.
I mean like Final Chapter, yeah, it has like bad moments, but it also has some really cool moments too. But yeah, those two and then the reboot were kind of what I thought about this specific era of like this span of years. So that was my animosity, quote unquote, um, about this specific era. And then, but I was always like, but I like Amazing and I like the Black Tarantula, and it's really cool because this was the series that I remembered the most of before I did like my big reread of the era, like probably like 6 7 months ago at this point. But I have always liked and enjoyed the Black Tarantula, and I really like the writing here, and I like the pencilers that they have for the most part. I mean, like Steve Scroce, we said is kind of like hit or miss, but when Joe Bennett hops on, I'm like, oh yeah, Yeah, let's get it.
I mean, he's not. I wouldn't put him on amazing, but I mean, well, we already went over all that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think it's
this.
interesting that. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I think it's
No, you're
interesting
good.
how excited Steve Scroce was to be on this book, and then he's barely on it.
Yeah, I mean, well, this was back when I imagine Amazing Spider-Man wasn't apparently a tryout book,
Yeah.
um, which we as a fandom we've kind of discovered through other podcasts that this book is apparently a tryout for certain creators, which baffles me.
Yeah,
But
it's the main book that's always gonna sell. Like, why do you want that to be the tryout book? I guess because like they
yeah,
can try an artist on it and they still know it sells. But I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
then you're not. I don't know. But I mean, I think as a post, and we're going to bring this up a lot, as a post Clone Saga book, I think it really sets the tone for everything. I like Spider-Man when he's doing crime, that underworld thing. I've said it, before. Oh, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I know we've said it, privately, the current run, well, it's over by the time this podcast is out. The Wells run, I don't like a lot of it, but I liked a lot of the Tombstone stuff. I think that that's what that run will be remembered as, in 10 years when the next generation discovers that book. Um, but it's so I always feel like under the underground stuff is always kind of like that nice refresh to Spider-Man, if that makes sense. Brand new day, you have like the Mr. Negative stuff, and you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
it always seems like kind of like a good like
it's a good reset.
re.
Like,
Yeah, it's a good reset, and I feel like this is one of the better ones, in my opinion. Um, so I mean,
but what about when he fights Senator Ward and his group of aliens? Is that a
well,
good
we don't talk
reset?
about that, man. This is like, come on, man.
Oh, we're not there yet. I'm sorry.
That, like, look, really, man, in front of my McDonald's, you know. So, but I really think that this is like a good transition era for this book, and I think amazing from this point onward. Yeah, there's a couple lulls, but I think from this point onward, I think this book is good. It's not my favorite in the reboot era, or not the reboot era, the pre-reboot era. It's not
Yeah.
my favorite, but it's up there.
Yeah, I mean it's just a good book. I mean there's nothing really about it. Like you said, maybe like I think I can think of maybe one issue, one or two issues that I just don't really care about, but they're not until like the very end. They're
Mm-hmm.
like the most filler of the filler right before Gathering of Five. So other than that, I dig it. This is like a solid 8 out of 10 for me. Like a you know A minus
It's a
A. I guess A would
it's
be.
I'd give it a 7.5. I think the art kind of takes it down a little bit. There's one thing about the we didn't talk about it, but the cover of this book. When I was
Mm.
a kid, I thought he was fighting metal men in this book, and I remember as a kid being like, "Where the fuck's the metal people? Where's the
Yeah,
robots?"
they are very oddly colored.
And El Uno is like the size of the Juggernaut, but
Yeah, it
like
looks
has
like he
like
has.
tiny
Looks like he
legs.
has shredder type fucking shoulder pads on too. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's going on there.
Yep. And yet Peter's like completely well lit and everything, which makes
Peter's
sense
on
because like
the
you're
yellow background of nothingness.
the PlayStation One empty void,
Yeah.
the symbiosis process. But
Oh
I
man.
mean, as a kid, like this was a book that like I tore through. This was a book that didn't have the cover for a lot of times.
Mm,
Um, and when you're hunting down the back issues, this is often one of the books that you will have the least trouble finding when it comes to this era.
yeah.
Um, You'll find it pretty much anywhere. If for like a couple dollars, like $2, $3. If you're spending, unless you're buying off eBay, if you're spending more than
Yeah,
$5 on this book, put it back.
I would agree with that.
So,
I think I paid $4 for mine, so that sounds about right.
well, and any more, and I would call you up and I would yell at you. I would have that internal collector's sense,
When
and I'd
I
be like,
bought it
"Dude,
like years and years ago, you'd be like, no, you Batman v Superman me and show up in front of me while I'm sleeping. Go, you paid that much for the book. Don't do that. Oh, I'm
oh
too
man,
late.
that's what happened to me." I mean, behind the scenes, listener, that happened to me kind of. What was it, like a couple days ago when I was looking at that 361 and I was like, I might buy this. Like that graded 361. I was looking at it in the comic book store, and in my head I was just like, I got like 3 copies of 361. Do I really need one? Even though I could just send one of mine in.
Nah, that's easier to buy them graded. You don't have to worry about it that way. I'm such
Yeah,
like
but
a
I got
buy it already graded guy. I hate sending books in.
yeah, but I'm such a like what do you call it? Get the stuff signed myself and then
Yeah, no,
send it in.
that's fair. I
I
don't know. I
I want to
wanna.
have.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I want to have a disgruntled Bagley story like you do.
Of course, yeah, you gotta have them. Yeah, yeah. I want to say some good things about Steve Scrooge really quick because I feel like we have said good, but I just want to be very clear that I don't hate him.
I
Like
do.
it.
He killed my father.
Oh my god. Oh no. So some
I
good.
made sm-
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm messing around. Go ahead.
Some good things I like. I like his Norman Osborn. This is like going back to Revelations. I like his Norman Osborn. I like his Gaunt. His the way that he draws Allison Mongrain is like the way that I view her in my head. So that's something that happens. I like the way he draws Ben Spidey, and yeah, those are things I like, and I like his cover work a lot, just in general. He
His
does
covers are good.
he does really great covers.
Really good splash pages too.
And when they were doing that in between period on Amazing with Ron Garney doing the pencils, I think he does a lot better Spider-Man than Ron Garney does. So I'll take that pretty much any day.
I mean, I actually believe him and that's probably why he did Berserker because I think Ron Garney
Yeah, I think
is
Ron Garney is like one of the main artists on Berserk. That makes sense.
I yeah, Berserker. Whatever it's called, I've never read it. I've heard it's good. I'm a big
Yeah,
Conan the Barbarian fan, but like I might check it out. But I mean, jumping on that, I mean, his image, his Norman Osborn, that image of him with the lighter,
yeah, the lighter's like iconic. Like,
that's as a kid of the '90s. When I think of Norman Osborn Revelations, that's the image I think in my head because Revelations. There's also that's the image I believe they used. I want to say either for the Green Goblin section or the Clone Saga section in the Spider-Man. I think it was the DK
oh, the visual
Spider-Man,
dictionary
the
one.
visual dictionary that DeFalco
Yeah,
wrote
that
years ago
DeFalco
with
did. Yeah,
the John Romita Jr. cover.
yep.
I believe that's what it's in there, and I ate that book up as a kid, and that image is seared into my memory,
That
and
book.
always will be.
That book is one of the only existing images of Judas Traveler holding Peter from Amazing 494. Oh my God, 394. Yeah, not 494.
Hey man,
Amazing 394. It's the only way that you can really get that image textless, and it's like I think it's colored incorrectly, which is really funny. I don't know. Of course, I have to focus on that, but yeah, any book that has a whole page that has Jewish Traveler on it is, I gotta have that.
there's gonna come a day where they're gonna announce a Marvel Legends Judas Traveler, and you're gonna be like the one person to be
I'm
like, oh,
buying
they did it.
everyone. I'm buying all of them.
Oh, I'll buy one. I mean, I don't
When they
really
hit
care if
Ollie's, they're gonna be mine.
when they hit Ollie's. Wow. I mean, I mean, that's not a steep bar at this point. They were selling what Bucky Cap at Ollie's, and that was like a $40
Yeah,
figure
they
at
were
one
selling
point.
the X-Men training 3-pack with Storm and Jubilee and oh my god, I can't remember his name.
Oh, I don't even remember. I don't
Oh
collect
my
the
god.
X Men figures.
Yeah. Can't remember his name right now. But yeah, they were selling that
That
3-pack. That's like a $70, 60 or $70 3-pack and it was like 20 bucks.
what was the one I was trying to have you look for me?
Was it Grey Hulk or Joe Fix
No,
It or whatever?
it wasn't Fix It. Oh yeah, well Fix It was one. It was uh
The
the
Android
the
thing.
the no, was that it? Was that it? No, it
I'm
was
trying to think
something
of the
else. I
most
want to
recent
say.
ones. I don't know. They've done a lot of
I
waves that
it,
have gone straight to Ollie's. Like the Chasm wave went to Ollie's.
which is a shame because I like that wave a lot.
That's a good wave. We got a Tarantula
It
figure. I never bought it. I should.
really.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I see the thing with Marvel Legends is like I know we talked about collecting and everything, but like I mean you know me, I basically wake up on fucking any given day and I'm just like, what Spider-Man thing shall I buy today? And that I basically buy all the Marvel Legends, so that Tarantula figure was like an instant buy because I had the Hasbro figure. But yeah, we're going on a tangent. So
Yeah. Anyway, this is a good book. Both the books were pretty serviceable. This this time, especially amazing.
yep,
Um,
especially amazing.
next week, next time, we're gonna be covering Spider-Man 76, Peter Parker Spider-Man 76. Sorry, we gotta put that in. It's not adjectiveless anymore.
You mean Ben
And
Riley's not in the book anymore?
oh my, spoilers! Come on, Spider-Man 75. What
Fuck!
the fuck?
I only buy the book for Ben Riley.
I'm pissed
This
now.
is ridiculous. I'm writing Marvel right now. I'm gonna write an email, and and I'll be like, excuse me, I was reading Peter Parker Spider-Man 76 and discovered that you had killed Ben Riley. I, as a longtime fan, I'm just gonna like watch them put me in the letters book and just be like, look at this whack job.
This guy is very late to the game.
Which, considering how they talk to some of their
Yeah.
letter writers, they might.
No, you need to write them and be like, so why on Marvel Unlimited can I read Spider-Man 75 and then read Spider-Man 97?
Oh God,
What happened to everything else?
that's a shame
I guess it's
because
not 97. The next one would be like what 89 is the next book 'cause that's when Identity Crisis like starts.
80, it's
It's the
the
negative
issue
zone
that I
issue.
it's the issue that I have. No, it's not the negative zone
Oh,
issue.
no, 88.
88.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the issue I have the
The Norman
lithograph of
issue. Yeah.
with that cool cover.
Yeah, the white cover, the Norman one. Yeah, yeah, it is 88, 88, 90. Yeah, and then they do skip. They
hmm
skip 93, 94, 95, and then they go to 96.
That's such a beautiful book. But anyway, I completely hijacked your next stuff.
No, it
So
doesn't matter. I was just, yeah, you should write them and be like, so, where are the missing issues, Marvel? Well, fun fact, I did them for you. Time to plug myself. It's the end of the episode. Check out the Spider-Man Rescan project. Follow me on Twitter at @BatCheeryMiro, and you can find links to that. I scanned all 36 missing issues of this era for you to read in
that
high
you did.
def, and they are really legible. And I really hope you give them a look because it has ruined my sleep schedule. I haven't slept well since I finished it. And also check out the Scarlet Archives, which is another thing I put together earlier this year. If you love Ben Riley, I've got pretty much every cover he's ever appeared on, especially of the Clone Saga era. I've got unused covers, I've got concept arts, I've got this, I got that, I got fan made things that I made, and a bunch of other fucking garbage. So give that a look too, because it was also very time consuming and is like 100% a labor of love. Like the life of Riley exists for chronicling the story and everything, and I want my archive to be kind of a companion piece to that. So
hmm
I have a lot of excerpts of art in there, and I've got all those covers, like I said. So it is literally just a giant Ben Riley archive, and I really hope people give it a look, especially the Rescan project. That is the thing that's directly tied to this uh, this podcast.
I mean, you're doing God's work. You
And anyone that wants me to do more stuff, you can send me money to do it because I'm done. I, I, I was
just
I was like maybe I'll do unlimited, but those books are double the size, and I don't know if my brain could take it.
oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that whole thing.
But yeah, that's all I've got to plug. You got anything you want to say?
I mean, I'll plug some things. We do have that Spidey page that
Yeah, the Facebook page.
we we do neglect because we're both busy. It's I'll have the link probably next episode. It's a Spidey page that we have on Facebook. It's got about 30,000 followers.
Just called
Uh,
Spidey.
yeah, it's just called Spidey. You'll know it's us because we got the picture of the episodes on there. I've been running that for years now. Um, and then, I don't have any rescan projects or anything like that because I am always busy, it seems. So if you want to pay me $20, I will ship you out to Delaware and you can sit in my front yard and I will pull out a book and read it to you and we'll have a theater and I will do the voices. I will enact it. I
Shadow
will hire a
puppets.
just fuck shadow puppets. I'm hiring an entire stage troupe. I'm gonna build a stage. You know what?
Spider-Man
You
Turn
won't
Off the
need
Dark too.
Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. You won't even need to complain about the MCU anymore. I will have fully production made. I will somehow fund this. I'm probably gonna have to get into drug money somehow, but we will
This
find a
is
way.
so elaborate.
That is the mission of this podcast. I'm gonna pull off a Spider-Man play. I'm saying it now.
E-party
Uh,
and a theater.
in a theater. I'm gonna. You know what? This is it. This is what my life's calling. I'm gonna call my girlfriend after this, and I'm gonna be like, "Baby, I need to take all the money that we've saved up, and I needed to buy a Spider-Man costume, like a $6,000 costume." And she'll probably be like, "Okay, I guess." Whatever. It's just another thing you're buying.
Oh man.
So, but
Yeah, do
yeah,
that,
that's
people.
about it.
Yeah, do that.
Or you can follow me on Twitter where I don't talk about anything comic books. I just yell about my Philadelphia sports teams. So,
All right. Well,
so yeah.
thanks again for giving us a listen. We greatly appreciate it. I need to read off the notes I actually write next episode because I was kind of spitballing even though I have them right in front of my face. I don't know. Just another thing I gotta do. It's all a learning
Nah,
curve.
you did great.
Well, I appreciate it. You did great too. We,
Thank
we,
you.
we
Thank you,
all did
Father.
great. That's the best part of this. We're all great. And these
You
books,
too, listener.
yeah,
You
you're
did great
great.
too, listener.
You're great. These books are great, except for you, Josh Hood. Please don't draw Spider-Man again. Um, anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Goodbye.